Sarah Chen stared at her reflection in the polished metal surface of the Galactic Academy's food dispenser, still amazed by how the lower gravity made her black hair float slightly around her shoulders. 2 weeks of space travel, and she still couldn't get used to being the first human student at Sector 7's most prestigious educational institution. Food selection not recognized, the machine chimed for the third time. Please choose from available menu options. Sarah sighed, running her fingers through her floating hair. Just give me whatever has the closest nutritional profile to Earth proteins and carbohydrates. The machine hummed, processing her request. Behind her, a growing line of alien students shifted uncertainly, their various appendages and sensory organs twitching with barely concealed curiosity. Sarah could feel their stares, some concerned, others intrigued, and a few plainly hostile. Being the only human in a school of 5,000 alien students meant she was never far from scrutiny. The dispenser finally produced a bowl of something that looked like blue pasta covered in orange foam. Sarah grabbed her tray, turned around, and immediately found herself face to thorax with a towering insectoid student who must have been at least 9 feet tall. Pardon, the insectoid buzzed in accented galactic standard, compound eyes reflecting Sarah's startled expression thousands of times. You are the Earth student. I am Zexith. My high studies indicate humans require specific atmospheric conditions. Are you finding respiration adequate? Sarah smiled, careful not to show her teeth after the cultural briefing she'd received. Yes, thank you. The environmental systems here are actually quite comfortable. She gestured to the crowded cafeteria. Would you like to join me? I could use some help figuring out what I'm about to eat. Zex's antennae twitched in what Sarah hoped was agreement. They found an empty table, though the seats around them quickly cleared as other students noticed the human's presence. Sarah pretended not to notice. Your epidermal coloring is fascinating, Zexif commented, mandibles clicking. I have studied that humans come in various shades. Is yours common? Pretty common in the part of Earth I'm from, Sarah replied, cautiously tasting the blue pasta. It wasn't terrible, something between mushrooms and seafood. My parents are from China, but I grew up in Singapore. That's a city-state on. A sudden crash interrupted her explanation. Across the cafeteria, a small, amphibious student had slipped on a spill, their tray of food flying through the air. Without thinking, Sarah leaped from her seat. In the lower gravity, she crossed the distance in 2 bounds, catching both the student and their tray before either hit the ground. The cafeteria fell silent. Sarah helped the student, who she now saw was a meridian, with delicate gill frills and iridescent scales, back to their feet. Are you okay? She asked, holding out the rescued tray. The meridian's throat sacs pulsed rapidly. You moved so fast. And your strength. They accepted the tray with trembling fingers, then quickly retreated to their friends, who huddled protectively around them. Sarah returned to her seat, aware that the silence had transformed into urgent whispers. Zix's antennae were rigid with what might have been shock. I apologize if I scared everyone, Sarah said quietly. Human reflexes can be pretty quick, especially in lower gravity. I just didn't want them to get hurt. You covered 15 meters in less than 2 seconds, Zexith stated, that a voice pitched higher than before, and maintained enough coordination to perform a complex catching maneuver, while carrying significant mass against gravitational forces. A pause. Humans are more capable than our xenobiology text suggested. Sarah poked to her blue pasta, appetite diminishing. We're really not that special. Earth just has higher gravity and a lot of predators, so we evolved to be fairly quick and adaptable. But we're not the strongest or fastest species even on our own planet. Yet he chose to help, came a new voice. A tall crystalline being had approached their table, their faceted body refracting the cafeteria's lights into rainbow patterns. Despite the clear distress your presence causes many students, your first instinct was to prevent injury to another. I'm Arxith, the crystalline being continued, settling into a seat that morphed to accommodate their unusual form. Professor of Xenosociology, I've been hoping to speak with you, Sarah Chen of Earth. Sarah straightened, recognizing the name from her class schedule. Professor, I'm sorry if I caused a disruption. On the contrary, Arxit's voice chimed like wind through glass. You've just provided an excellent demonstration for my thesis on Deathworld species behavioral patterns. Despite evolving in hostile conditions that necessitate physical capabilities many find alarming, species like humans often develop strong protective and cooperative instincts. The professor's crystalline surface shifted in what might have been amusement, though perhaps we should work on helping you display those instincts in less dramatic ways. Zexith's antennae had relaxed slightly. The human did express concern for my respiratory comfort earlier, they noted, before any discussion of personal benefit or alliance. Precisely, Arxith hummed. Sarah, would you be willing to assist with some research? I believe your presence here represents an unprecedented opportunity to study how Deathworld adaptations might actually facilitate rather than hinder interspecies cooperation. Sarah looked around the cafeteria. Most students were still staring, but she noticed a few had moved closer, their body language suggesting curiosity rather than fear. The Meridian student she'd helped was watching from their table, gill frills now pulsing with a different rhythm. I'd like that, Sarah said, finally taking another bite of her increasingly cold pasta. But maybe we could start with something simple, like explaining why this food tastes like sushi mixed with mushrooms. Arxit's crystalline laugh rang through the cafeteria like chimes, and Sarah noticed several students hiding their own sounds of amusement. Even Zexith's mandibles clicked in what she was learning to recognize as their version of a chuckle. An excellent suggestion, the professor said. Sometimes the best way to understand each other is to start with the simple things we share, like complaining about cafeteria food. As the tension in the room gradually eased, Sarah felt herself relax. She had come to the Galactic Academy hoping to learn about alien cultures, but perhaps she would end up teaching as much as she learned. One meal at a time, one spontaneous rescue at a time, one shared laugh at a time. Bridges could be built, even between a Deathworlder and the rest of the galaxy. She just hoped tomorrow's lunch would look less like it was trying to escape from her bowl. The Galactic Academy's gymnasium was unlike anything Sarah had seen on Earth. The massive dome stretched nearly 100 meters high, its transparent panels revealing the purple-tinged sky of Proxima Station. Various equipment stations dotted the space, many of them completely alien to her. Class, today we begin interspecies adaptability training, announced Coach Kelvin, the gelatinous form rippling with bioluminescent patterns. Given recent events in the cafeteria, we'll start with a practical demonstration of varied species capabilities. Sarah felt her cheeks warm as several students shot glances her way. Word of the cafeteria incident had spread quickly, spawning wild rumors about human abilities. She'd heard one first-year claim humans could leap tall buildings in a single bound, though admittedly, in this gravity, she probably could clear a decent height. Chen, Zexith, and Laura, you're our first group. Coach Kelvin's lights pulsed. Please approach the obstacle course. Sarah walked forward, joined by her now familiar insectoid friend and a hovering cloud of what appeared to be silvery gas confined within a containment field. Laura, she presumed. The obstacle course before them looked like a twisted combination of jungle gym and quantum physics experiment. Each of you will navigate the course using your natural abilities, the coach explained. The goal is not competition, but understanding. Observe how different evolutionary paths solve the same challenges. Zexith went first. Their segmented body moved with surprising grace, chitinous legs finding purchase on surfaces Sarah could barely see. They scaled walls effortlessly and navigated narrow passages with efficient movements. Laura's approach was completely different. The gaseous beings simply flowed through the course, their containment field allowing them to pass through gaps and around obstacles like wind through trees. Several students murmured appreciatively at the elegant display. Then it was Sarah's turn. She studied the course, aware of the intense attention from her classmates. The first obstacle was a series of platforms at varying heights. In Earth's gravity, it would have been challenging. Here, Sarah took a running start and leaped. Her calculated jump carried her higher than intended, and she had to quickly adjust her trajectory. She landed on the first platform in a crouch, immediately pushing off toward the next one. Her muscles, evolved for much stronger gravity, launched her through the course like a gymnast on the moon. Remarkable adaptation to reduced gravitational forces, Coach Kelvin commented, their bioluminescence flickering rapidly. Notice how the human's musculature, developed for a high-gravity environment, provides significant advantages here. Sarah reached a section where handholds crossed the ceiling. Without hesitation, she grabbed them and began swinging from one to the next, her momentum carrying her forward. She could hear gasps from below. Apparently, moving across a ceiling wasn't a common ability among her classmates. That's when the accident happened. A loud crack echoed through the gymnasium. One of the overhead gravity generators, responsible for maintaining the delicate balance of forces in the room, had malfunctioned. Sarah watched in horror as several students began floating uncontrollably upward, while others were suddenly pressed toward the ground. Emergency protocols. Coach Kelvin's voice boomed, their forms stretching toward the affected students. But they couldn't reach everyone at once. Sarah didn't hesitate. Still hanging from the ceiling holds, she had a perfect vantage point. She spotted a young crystalline, similar to Professor Arksith, being pulled toward a wall by the fluctuating gravity field. Without thinking, she swung herself in an arc and released, calculating her trajectory through the chaotic gravitational forces. She caught the crystalline student mid-air, twisting to absorb the impact as they hit the wall together. Her back struck first, cushioning her classmate from what could have been a devastating collision for their brittle form. "Hold on to me," she instructed, already looking for her next move. Across the room, more students were in trouble. Using the wall as a launch point, Sarah began a series of calculated jumps and catches, her Earth-evolved muscles and reflexes allowing her to navigate the shifting gravity fields. She rescued 3 more students before the emergency systems kicked in, stabilizing the gravity. As the chaos subsided, Sarah found herself at the center of a very different kind of attention than before. That was incredible. The crystalline student she'd first saved chimed softly. "You risked yourself to protect me. Us." "Protecting others is a core human instinct," Sarah explained, rubbing her sore back. "On Earth, we have a saying, with great power comes great responsibility." See, a fascinating philosophical concept. Coach Kelvin moved closer, their bioluminescence now a calm blue. "Your species evolved significant physical capabilities in response to environmental pressures, yet you've culturally encoded the use of those abilities for the benefit of others." Zexith, who had helped coordinate the other students during the crisis, clicked their mandibles thoughtfully. Perhaps this is why humans have succeeded on their Deathworld, not merely through physical adaptation, but through cooperation and protective behaviors. The coach's lights pulsed in agreement. "Class, today we witnessed something more valuable than individual physical capabilities. We saw how different evolutionary advantages can be used not for competition, but for the protection and benefit of all." As the adrenaline wore off, Sarah noticed her classmates' reactions had changed. Where before there had been fear or uncertainty, she now saw respect, curiosity, and even admiration. A few students approached to thank her, each in their own unique way. Light patterns, pheromones, subsonic rumbles, and more. "You know, Encelora's gaseous forms swirled nearby. I believe I understand now why the Academy admitted a human. Your physical capabilities are impressive, yes, but it's how you choose to use them that truly matters." Sarah smiled, this time not worried about showing her teeth. Her classmates no longer flinched at the gesture. "I'm just glad I could help. Though I have to admit, I didn't expect my first PE class to be quite this exciting. Oh, this is nothing. Zixith buzzed with what Sarah now recognized as amusement. Wait until we start anti-gravity sports next week. As her classmates laughed, Sarah realized something had fundamentally shifted. She was no longer just the strange Deathworlder who might be dangerous. She was Sarah Chen, the human who would risk herself to protect others. And somehow, that made all the difference. The advanced xenochemistry labs sparkled with holographic molecular structures and bubbling solutions in containers of every imaginable shape. Sarah sat at her workstation, carefully adjusting her protective gear, while trying not to feel self-conscious about being the only student wearing what seemed like minimal protection compared to her classmates' elaborate containment suits. Professor Nixis, a being composed of what appeared to be living mercury, flowed around the room checking everyone's safety preparations. They paused at Sarah's station, their surface rippling with what might have been concern. Student Chen, are you certain your species' standard protective equipment is sufficient? Today's experiment involves compounds that most carbon-based life forms find challenging. Sarah double-checked her safety goggles and gloves. Yes, Professor. I reviewed the chemical profiles. Most of these substances are actually less corrosive than some cleaning products we use on Earth. A wave of surprised murmurs rippled through the class. Next to her, her lab partner Crix, a silicon-based life form with crystalline appendages, emitted a concerned harmonic tone. Earth cleaning products are corrosive, Crix chimed anxiously. You willingly keep dangerous chemicals in your living spaces. Well, yes, Sarah explained, beginning to measure out their first reagent. Earth bacteria can be pretty hardy, so we need strong chemicals to maintain hygiene. Most humans I know have accidentally gotten cleaning products on their skin at some point. It's not pleasant, but it's rarely dangerous if you wash it off quickly. Professor Nixis's surface swirled with interest. Fascinating. Your species' chemical resilience might prove advantageous for today's synthesis. Please proceed with the experiment, but do alert me if you experience any discomfort. The class began their work, attempting to synthesize a new compound that could theoretically serve as a universal translator medium, something that could facilitate direct chemical communication between vastly different species. Sarah and Crix worked well together, their different perspectives helping them spot potential issues before they arose. Everything was going smoothly until the accident. 2 stations away, a group of gaseous students lost containment on their solution. A cloud of what the safety protocols classified as extremely caustic vapor began spreading through the room. Warning lights flashed as emergency shields began deploying around each workstation. But Sarah's shield malfunctioned. She found herself enveloped in the vapor before anyone could react. The class erupted in panic, several students producing alarm pheromones or distress signals. Professor Nixis rushed toward her station, their mercury forms stretching across the space. Student Chen, don't move. Emergency decontamination. I'm fine, Sarah called out, waving her hand through the vapor. Really, I'm okay. It just smells like vinegar. The room fell silent. Even Professor Nixis seemed to freeze, their liquid form rippling with disbelief. That's impossible, one student whispered. That vapor should be dissolving organic matter on contact. Sarah took a careful breath. It's definitely acidic, but no worse than the pickle juice my grandmother makes. Actually, she sniffed again. The chemical structure must be similar. Professor, I think I know why this isn't affecting me. Professor Nixis flowed closer, their senses obviously scanning her. Please explain, Student Chen. Humans deliberately eat acids for flavor, Sarah said, realizing how bizarre this must sound to her classmates. Vinegar, citric acid, ascorbic acid, they're all common in our food. We've evolved pretty robust mechanisms for handling acidic compounds. This vapor seems to be in a similar fate range. The professor's surface rippled with what Sarah had learned to recognize as excitement. Class, observe. This is a perfect example of how evolutionary pressures can produce unexpected advantages. The human digestive system's adaptation to Earth's acidic foods has granted student Chen remarkable resistance to what we consider hazardous chemicals. The emergency systems finally cleared the vapor, and Sarah's classmates crowded around her workstation, fascination overcoming their earlier fear. Questions poured in from all directions. You intentionally consume acids. Does it cause you pain? Can all humans do this? What other chemicals can you resist? Sarah held up her hands, laughing. One at a time. Yes, we eat acids. No, it doesn't hurt if they're food grade, and different humans have different tolerances. As for other chemicals, she glanced at Professor Nixis. Maybe we could design some experiments to find out. Safely, of course. The professor's surface gleamed with approval. Indeed. Student Chen, would you be willing to assist in developing a comprehensive study of human chemical resilience? This could have significant implications for xenobiology and medical research. I'd be happy to help, Sarah agreed. Though maybe we should start with something simple, like why humans can drink carbonated beverages that would apparently count as pressurized acid weapons in some star systems. Crickets vibrated with what Sarah now knew was their version of laughter. First you demonstrate impossible physical abilities in physical education, and now we learn you regularly consume substances that would dissolve most species' digestive systems. Is there anything about Earth that isn't terrifying? Sarah grinned. Wait until you hear about our spicy foods. There's this pepper called the Carolina Reaper. The rest of the class period turned into an impromptu seminar on human dietary habits, with Sarah's classmates alternating between horror and fascination as she explained concepts like recreational capsaicin consumption and competitive eating contests. As they cleaned up their workstations, Professor Nixis flowed past Sarah one last time. You've given us much to think about, Student Chen. Perhaps what we consider environmental hazards are simply a matter of perspective. Your presence here continues to challenge our preconceptions in the best possible way. Sarah nodded, carefully storing their experimental compounds. That's why I came to the Academy, Professor, not just to learn about other species, but to help everyone understand each other better, even if that means explaining why humans occasionally eat things that could strip paint. The class ended with several students making plans to visit the cafeteria together, eager to watch Sarah demonstrate her species' chemical resilience firsthand. As they left the lab, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Who would have thought that her love of spicy food would become a breakthrough in interstellar diplomacy? The first warning came as Sarah was studying in her room. The Academy's ambient lighting flickered, then shifted to a deep purple, the universal signal for approaching stellar phenomena. Outside her window, the station's magnetic shields were already visible, shimmering like auroras against the void of space. Attention all students, the Academy's AI announced, its voice calm but urgent. A Class 4 solar storm has been detected. Please proceed to your designated shelter areas immediately. Sarah grabbed her emergency kit and headed for the door. In the corridor, she found chaos. The artificial gravity was fluctuating, causing several floating students to panic. The emergency lights cast strange shadows, disorienting those species that relied on specific light wavelengths for navigation. Everyone stay calm, she called out, her voice cutting through the confusion. The shelter is just 2 levels down. Who needs help? A group of photosynthetic freshmen huddled against a wall, their leaf-like appendages trembling in the darkness. We can't see, one whispered. Our light-sensing organs aren't adapted to these wavelengths. Form a chain, Sarah instructed, reaching for the nearest student. Hold on to each other and follow my voice. I can see just fine in this light. Years of power outages during Earth's increasingly volatile storms had taught her how to navigate in low light. Her natural night vision, while not as good as some predatory species, was more than adequate for the emergency lighting. They had just reached the main stairwell when the real trouble began. A massive electromagnetic pulse from the storm hit the station. The artificial gravity failed completely, and the temperature regulation systems went offline. Emergency force fields snapped into place around critical systems, but Sarah could feel the ambient temperature rising rapidly. Warning, the A's voice crackled. Primary environmental controls compromised. Backup systems at 60% capacity and falling. Sarah heard whimpers of distress around her. Many species at the academy were highly sensitive to temperature changes. She needed to get them to the shelter quickly. Zexith, she called out, spotting her insectoid friend, helping other students navigate the stairwell. What's the situation below? Environmental systems failing station-wide. Zexith clicked rapidly. The shelter's thermal regulators are holding, but many students are trapped in the corridors. The maintenance drones can't function in this radiation. Sarah made a quick decision. Get these students to the shelter. I'm going back for the others. The radiation levels, Zexith began, are high but not immediately lethal to humans, Sarah finished. We evolved under a yellow sun with a weak magnetic field. This isn't that different from a bad solar flare on Earth. She pushed off the wall, using her zero-gravity training to navigate back up the corridor. The temperature was still rising, and she could feel sweat beginning to form, another uniquely human advantage in this situation. While other species risked overheating, her body's natural cooling system was working overtime. Over the next hour, Sarah made multiple trips through the affected areas of the academy. She found a group of crystalline students nearly immobilized by the heat, their molecular structures beginning to destabilize. With careful movements, she helped them to cooler areas. She discovered several aquatic species trapped when their water circulation systems failed, and worked with Ms. Laura to create a gaseous bubble system to transport them safely. The worst moment came when she found Professor Arksith trapped in their office, their crystalline form showing signs of stress fractures from the temperature fluctuations. Professor, we need to get you to the shelter, Sarah said, assessing the situation. The radiation levels are too high, Arksith's voice chimed weakly. Your cellular structure is remarkably good at repairing radiation damage, Sarah interrupted, carefully supporting the professor's crystalline form. Did you know humans actually have a gene that helps repair DNA damage from radiation? We're basically walking repair kits. She guided them through the corridors, using her body as a shield against the worst of the radiation. By the time they reached the shelter, Sarah's skin was red from the heat and exposure, but her determination never wavered. Inside the shelter, the scene had transformed from chaos to organized efficiency. Students of different species were working together, using their various abilities to help maintain the environmental systems. Zixit's hive mind coordination skills had proven invaluable in organizing the effort. Sarah, Crix called out, the crystalline form vibrating with concern. Your epidermis is changing color. Just a mild sunburn, Sarah assured them, helping Professor Arksith to a cooling station. Nothing some aloe vera won't fix. How are the shelter systems holding up? Better now. Laura's gaseous forms swirled nearby. We've established a cooperative maintenance system. The gaseous species are handling heat distribution, crystalline students are managing power flow, and the photosynthetic freshmen you saved are actually helping generate auxiliary power through emergency light panels. Professor Arksith's voice chimed softly. Once again, you've demonstrated why Deathworld adaptations can be a blessing rather than a curse. Your species' resilience, it's not just physical, is it? Sarah looked around the shelter, seeing not panic but cooperation. Different species working together, each contributing their unique abilities to ensure everyone's survival. No, it's not. Humans are tough, sure, but our real strength has always been in bringing people together, especially in a crisis. The storm raged for several more hours, but the shelter held. When the all-clear finally sounded, the academy had changed. Species that had once kept to their own environmental groups were now talking, sharing experiences, and learning from each other. As students began returning to their quarters, Sarah overheard a young crystalline student say to their friend, "You know, maybe having a Deathworlder around isn't so bad after all." Sarah smiled, despite her sunburn. Sometimes it took a storm to break down barriers and show everyone that their differences could be their greatest strength. The Galactic Academy's main arena buzzed with excitement as delegations from 20 different spacefaring civilizations gathered for the annual Intergalactic School Championships. Holographic displays showed team standings, while translated drones struggled to keep up with a cacophony of different communication methods. Sarah stood with her academy teammates, trying not to fidget with her uniform. After the solar storm incident, she'd been invited to join the academy's multi-species athletics team, despite numerous concerns from the safety committee. "Are you certain about this?" His exit's antennae twitched nervously. The Centaurian team has never lost the endurance event, and the Rigelians are favored for strength competitions. "I'm not here to win," Sarah replied, watching as a group of energy beings floated past, trailing sparkles of light. "I'm here to compete. Besides, there are plenty of events where human abilities aren't advantageous at all." Professor Arksith, now serving as one of the team coaches, chimed in. "Indeed, the championships were designed to showcase the diverse abilities of all species. No single evolutionary path can excel at everything." The opening ceremony was a spectacular display of each species' unique characteristics. Energy beings danced through the air in complex patterns. Crystalline students created stunning light shows with their refractive bodies. Gaseous competitors formed impossibly complex shapes. Then the competitions began. Sarah's first event was the adaptive obstacle course, a challenge that randomly changed its configuration to prevent any species from having a consistent advantage. As she stepped up to the starting line, she heard murmurs from the crowd. "Is that a carbon-based competitor? From a Deathworld, I heard. But they're so soft-looking." The course materialized. A mix of anti-gravity zones, thermal barriers, radiation fields, and physical obstacles. Sarah took a deep breath, remembering her training. When the signal came, she moved. Her human adaptability proved both a blessing and a curse. She couldn't phase through barriers like the energy beings, or float effortlessly like the gaseous competitors. But she could adapt quickly to changing conditions, her body's natural systems compensating for environmental stresses. She navigated the anti-gravity zones with practiced ease, her Earth-evolved inner ear helping her maintain orientation. The thermal barriers were uncomfortable but manageable thanks to her sweat glands. When she reached the radiation field, several spectators gasped, expecting her to retreat. Instead, Sarah pressed forward. "Humans have surprisingly good radiation resistance," she'd explained during training. "Not the best, but better than you'd expect for a carbon-based species." She finished the course in 4th place, not spectacular, but respectable. More importantly, she'd shown that humans could compete alongside species that seemed far more advanced. The day continued with mixed results. Sarah struggled in the light-speed reaction tests, her neural responses simply too slow compared to some species. But in the endurance trials, she shocked everyone. "Another lap?" The Centaurian team captain asked incredulously, their bioluminescent patterns showing disbelief as Sarah kept pace with them. "Humans are persistence predators," Sarah explained between steady breaths. "We can't run the fastest, but we can run for hours, days if we need to." She ended up taking 2nd place in endurance, breaking the Centaurians' winning streak. But it was the final event of the day that truly changed perspectives. The multi-species relay required teams to work together, each member using their unique abilities to overcome different challenges. Sarah was the last runner for her team, facing a series of obstacles that seemed designed to showcase every human weakness. They were behind when she received the baton. The leading team, comprised entirely of energy beings, seemed impossible to catch. But as Sarah ran, jumped, climbed, and problem-solved her way through the course, something remarkable happened. She began gaining ground. Not through superior speed or strength, but through sheer adaptability. Where energy beings had to pause to reconfigure themselves for each obstacle, Sarah flowed from one challenge to the next. Where crystalline competitors needed time to adjust their molecular structure, she simply altered her approach. The final stretch was a vertical climb in increased gravity. Sarah's muscles, evolved for Earth's punishing gravity, strained but held. She reached the top platform neck and neck with the energy being. The final obstacle was a puzzle, a complex pattern that needed to be completed while maintaining balance on the narrow platform. The energy being began rapidly shifting forms, trying different configurations. Sarah took a moment to study the pattern. "It's not about being the fastest," she muttered, remembering her mother's words about her homework. "It's about seeing the whole picture." She solved the puzzle just seconds before her competitor, securing victory for her team. The arena erupted in a chorus of cheers, whistles, and various alien expressions of celebration. As her teammates lifted her onto their diverse array of appendages, Sarah caught sight of Professor Arksith speaking with delegates from other schools. The crystalline professor's form was practically glowing with pride. Later, during the awards ceremony, the head judge, an ancient silicon-based entity, made an unprecedented announcement. "Today's events have demonstrated something remarkable. They resonated. The true measure of athletic achievement is not in individual superiority, but in the ability to adapt, endure, and work together. The human competitor has shown us that what we might consider primitive adaptations can be just as valuable as more advanced evolutionary traits." Sarah stood on the podium, her medal reflecting the arena's lights. Around her, competitors from across the galaxy were looking at her, and humans in general, with new understanding. "You have changed many minds today," Zexif buzzed quietly, "not through overwhelming power or superior abilities, but by showing that every species has something valuable to contribute." "That's the real victory," Sarah replied, watching as teams began mingling, sharing stories, and comparing experiences. "Not the medal, but the bridges we've built." As the closing ceremonies began, featuring a synchronized display from all participating species, Sarah realized that sport had done what diplomacy often couldn't. It had brought them all together as equals, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, but all valuable in their own way. The day of the cultural exchange celebration had arrived at the Galactic Academy, and the entire campus buzzed with excitement. Students from across the known systems had gathered to share their unique customs, cuisines, and perspectives. Eshel, the human exchange student, stood nervously in the main hall, clutching a platter of freshly baked cookies. She had spent hours perfecting the recipe, hoping to introduce her new alien friends to the delights of human baking. Despite her initial trepidation, Eshel had come to feel a genuine sense of belonging at the academy over the past semester. The barriers that had once seemed insurmountable had slowly crumbled through shared experiences and growing mutual understanding. As Eshel scanned the crowded room, her eyes landed on a group of Solarian students she had become close with. Steeling her nerves, she made her way over to them, offering the tray of cookies. "I made these for you all. I hope you enjoy them." The Solarian's eyes widened in surprise, their delicate tentacles reaching out to gingly sample the treats. After a moment of hesitation, their features broke into wide, toothy grins. "Why, these are delightful," explained Torol, the group's leader. "The flavors are so complex and fresh. We've never tasted anything quite like this on our home planet." Eshel beamed with pride, her earlier anxiety melting away. "I'm so glad you like them. Please have as many as you'd like." As the Solarians enthusiastically devoured the cookies, Eshel felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced since arriving at the academy. Nearby, Eshel spotted a group of Krunari students, their reptilian features typically set in a state of stoic indifference. However, today their scales seemed to shimmer with a hint of curiosity. Deciding to take a chance, Eshel approached them as well, offering the remaining cookies. At first, the Krunari simply stared at the proffered tray, their unblinking eyes betraying no emotion. Then slowly, one of the students, a young female named Vesh, reached out a clawed hand and delicately plucked a cookie from the pile. She brought it to her mouth, her forked tongue flicking out to sample the scent before taking a tentative bite. The reaction was instantaneous. Vesh's eyes widened, and a rumbling purr emanated from deep within her chest. This is amazing," she exclaimed, surprising her fellow Krunari. "The combination of sweet and savory flavors is simply exquisite." Without further hesitation, the group eagerly accepted the cookies, their typically stoic demeanors giving way to genuine delight. Ishil watched the scene unfold with a sense of wonder, marveling at how something as simple as a batch of homemade cookies could bridge the gaps between such vastly different species. As she continued to circulate through the hall, sharing her human customs and sampling the exotic delicacies of her alien peers, Eshel felt a growing sense of pride and belonging. This was her home now, a place where differences were celebrated and barriers were slowly crumbling. The fear and trepidation that had once defined her experience at the Galactic Academy had been replaced by a sense of camaraderie and mutual understanding. Eshel knew that her journey was far from over, but in this moment, she felt truly accepted for who she was, a human, yes, but also a valued member of this diverse and vibrant community. As the festivities drew to a close and Eshel prepared to return to her dormitory, she couldn't help but reflect on how much she had grown since that first day in the cafeteria. The once daunting challenges had become opportunities for learning and growth, and the once wary glances of her peers had transformed into genuine smiles and warm embraces. Eshel knew that her time at the Galactic Academy had forever changed her, and she was grateful for the experience. As she drifted off to sleep that night, she couldn't wait to see what the future had in store, not just for her, but for the entire community she now called home.